We're going to actually talk about staircasing a BOS, or rather break of structure. And by break of structure, you should know by now I'm referring to market structure. So this can have its ups and downs, of course, just like with anything in trading. You may opt to do this only sometimes, but not always. In fact, that's what I tend to do. And we'll be talking more about that as the lesson progresses as we show various examples. So the idea is quite simple, really. In an uptrend, you have a standard higher high and higher low sort of move, right? We have higher highs, higher lows, the entire leg up. And within that leg up, every single candle body close above the previous higher high, as such, would indicate a break in structure, or a BOS for short. So we have a BOS. Now, sometimes you may see this instead, where during that move, you have something of this nature, where the first candle that actually went above the break of structure line was a wick. And then you have this in the following candle, right? Where the following candle breaks through and you still draw it in as a break of structure. Okay, that's fine in certain circumstances. Sure. Now, when I say staircasing a break of structure, I more or less would be referring to, okay, let's say price was actually coming from a downtrend, but we'll say this was a hefty downtrend that went on for quite a while. And ultimately, you had this bearish price action that we hope is going to flip bullish, but we haven't really justified a trade yet. Let's actually draw this a little bit cleaner than that. Let's draw it over to there, and we'll draw that over there, and we'll actually get rid of this little bit of it. So there we go. There's our downtrend. It's kind of not the prettiest looking downtrend, but it's still a downtrend. So we know that we had our last bearish break of structure here, of course. Okay, that was our last bearish break. Maybe we'll say that was a wick. We'll call that a wick, and that was a wick. Therefore, the high that failed to break that low became what? It became a weak high. And price is therefore making its way back to that weak high. X marks the spot, as I like to say. Right? So price finally made its way back over to here, towards that high in question. And we'll say that it wasn't actually a break of structure. So we're going to go and staircase this. So perhaps it looked something like this, right? Let's say it looked like this, where you had a situation where that was a wick, and we'll say the next candle was also a wick above the previous candle wick. And you have a lot of wicks all over the place, essentially, right? So you have a lot of wicks all over the place. The last one was, we'll say it was this. Okay, we'll say it was just a wick as well. And you have this kind of situation. So technically speaking, it is a valid break of structure. So this itself is a valid break of structure still, because you had that candle body close above the previous lower high at some point. However, you may opt for the safer alternative. This may, in fact, produce unfortunate circumstances where by staircasing it every single time, by waiting for that extra edge, you may not have a trade. Okay, so price may not retrace. You might have waited too long. Maybe this wasn't sufficient enough for a break for you, and this was the only entry that you would have had. We'll get to this in a minute, and then price just took off, not giving you a final retest, and bummer, right? You missed the trade. But I will tell you guys that the reason why when I'll staircase a break of structure, and I say staircase it because it looks like a stair, right? You're following it like this eventually, and you'll see why in a minute when we actually look at some examples, but it kind of looks like stairs. In a downwards motion, you have a staircase effect, and then you have the upward staircase effect, as I mentioned a minute ago, right? It's because we'll look at it and we'll say, okay, so if this was the last candle wick, that was the last candle, and on that lower high, it looks something like that, right? And okay, we draw it over. We're kind of making that staircase effect. So up, over, up, over, up, over, up. And we're waiting for this guy to break now before we say that the bearish structure was actually officially broken. Because it's only wicks. We're not actually breaking any of the previous wicks. You got wicks all over the place. So that's not sufficient enough maybe for you. Or you want to wait for candle body close above all these wicks before you say, hey, you know, this downtrend is now bullish. So obviously by doing this, it's a stronger indication that the trend truly shifted. It's always going to be. Always. But again, sometimes it doesn't make sense to do that, to wait that long. You really have to know what you're dealing with in terms of not only market structure, but liquidity. Was there fair value gaps there? For example, if I see nothing but a big old fair value gap here, I may say to myself, you know what? Do I really want to wait for the staircase effect and wait for this guy to break with a close now? I'm already seeing price retrace a bit. What if I seen a shift in structure here following the retrace. Well, I might just get involved right there because this is a break of structure still. You really have to observe what's going on. But this lesson is to indicate, hey, this is how you staircase a break of structure. I do it sometimes on my live streams. A break may not be suitable enough for me. Let's say I'm trading a Wyckoff model and I see the break of structure following what I think is the third tap, but it's doing this. Okay, it's doing this. That's when I'll tell myself, you know what? If I'm not already involved with this trade, I think I'm going to wait for the staircase to actually break officially, which would indicate a shift in the true trend before I go bananas on an entry like this. That's kind of risky for me still, especially with bigger money. You know, you want to have that extra confidence, and staircasing a break of structure would give you that confidence. So how do you staircase it? Well, again, I would just go over from the previous area that I wanted to break originally, and I draw it up, over, up, over, up, over, up. Now, let's say one of those candles went like this. Let's say this candle did not have a wick like that, and instead it actually broke above the previous wick. Let's see what happens here. So we had this instead. So that to me would indicate that structure broke between here, and it actually broke officially right here. So my break of structure line is actually on a diagonal. I bet you've never seen that before. I'm weird. I have my own rules. So in saying that, this would be a valid break of structure for me for this high, not from here to here per se, but from this high over to here. It's on an angle, which is fine. That's perfectly fine. So that tells me right then and there that even if we do get more wicks like we're seeing here, I can still wait for the next retracement and get involved. And this is a more convincing break. It gives 2 check marks rather than just 1 because I waited for that staircase effect. So again, I don't voluntarily wait for these, but if I see that price action is producing wicks all over the place, yet it's still breaking with a close a few candles later, it wasn't like a surefire break, one big old candle that just broke the structure line immediately, something like that. We didn't get that. Instead, we ended up with all these wicks here in a staircase effect break. Generally, the staircase effect happens when you don't get a significant break. So when you do not have a very convincing just couple candle break where you get that follow through immediately, that's when you end up with situations like this very often. And it causes hesitation to many folks, right? Oh, wow, was that really a nice break of structure? Was that a poor break of structure? And that's when I see that it's really taking its time. It's really hovering around that break of structure line and hovering above it slightly. That's when I'll apply the staircasing effect more often. So if we actually go down and look at some examples, let's see if we can find anything here. So actually, let's look at this right here. Let's go like this, look. So what do we see so far? We see that price action, and I'm not going to go like way far out. I just want to show you guys an example of how this works. Okay, we're not looking at everything combined right now. We're just looking at local price action only. So price made a higher high, came down to here, made a higher low, and then right across, okay, higher high. And I bet you on the 3-minute time frame, that's a valid higher low, so we're going to use it anyways, and then we have a higher high. Let's verify that. That would be valid. You had 2 black candles, sure, let's use it. Okay, so we have a retracement. That's all that matters. So we have higher highs and higher lows. So what happened here is that price action made equal lows. So that's something to note, but again, it's not about the theory. We're just trying to show you guys how the staircasing works. So let's actually investigate the structure between here and here, because it is internal, right? It is internal structure, and we're hoping that price action maintains its bullish structure here, we'll say. All right, so what do we have? Well, we know that based on market structure lessons that you have your framework, and the framework here would be that price action was making higher highs and higher lows. We're essentially looking at the internal structure between, right? We're waiting for something like this, and then to indicate that, hey, we have that shift in structure here. Between here, here, and here is what we're looking at. So between here, here, and here. So we're waiting for something to break so that we can say to ourselves, okay, maybe the higher low is in. Maybe we can actually target this high again. Well, let's see what happens. I know this is not a confirmed higher low, but we're going to draw it in anyways for now. And we're going to look at that internal structure. So that internal structure is basically starting from here over, right? Because it touched equally here, and then it went up, went like that, went like this, went like that. So essentially, if you were to take your break of structure line, look what happens. That's only a wick. But if you had have taken it over a little bit further, you would have seen that as an internal break of structure. We're just going to label it BOS, though. We're not going to use I, BOS. So you have an internal break of structure from this candle to this candle right here. Okay, you could look at that. That's valid. Technically speaking, it's valid. However, if you're really not sure, you could say to yourself, well, it was hovering around that break of structure line. The first candle even closed back under that line. The second and third candle closed above it, but kind of retraced very, very soon without really breaking aggressively above. I'm not really a big fan of that break. So maybe we should staircase the break instead. That's fine. So how you would do this to justify that this actually happened, okay, this lower low, lower high, lower low, higher high situation happened to justify X marks a spot, you would have to see a break above the highest wick point. Okay, and let's do it again. So we'll draw this over. So basically what we're doing is we're extending it diagonally, right? So we're going to go like this. We're going to take this guy now. We're going to go back. We're going to say, no, we're actually going to use the staircase effect here. That's not a BOS. I'm going to get rid of the BOS template. Now we're going to wait for this guy to break. Oh, what the heck? He broke with another wick. Well, that's no good to me. What about from here to here? Same situation. You're going to keep doing this the entire way up. From here to here. From here to here. And from here to here. Still no breaks. We're still waiting for this to happen. We're still waiting to justify this as a break of structure from this point right here to indicate that this is now a target, right? This is now a target, but we're not getting it so far. Let's see if we do get it. So now, obviously, we have to keep staircasing it. So we have to wait for this guy to break. Oh. So I guess the folks that were hoping that we were going to continue on bullishly here, if they had have used this as a break of structure, sure, they may have gotten in on the first retracement right here, but obviously they didn't hit their target. They probably got stopped out at break even, right? So this is a really good example as to why I may use the staircasing effect rather than just trusting this as a first BOS. Okay, it just doesn't look good to me. Now you may be wondering why I didn't use the actual downwards left to right break. Well, because on a lower time frame that would have been a valid break, and I'm trying to show an example here, right? So that's a perfect example as to how I would justify the break. So now that we took this low, here's your new structure from a standpoint from this high downwards. Now you have this downwards bearish structure. We have this, and now this in red. So we have bearish structure,